somewhere between opening hymns, prayers, call to worships, choir and praise team selections, sermons, altar prayers, the reception of new members, doxologies, benedictions, as well as other parts of the service, spirits have been broken because toxic traditions in religion are more important than developing healthy relationships. Good morning. My name is Shikera Thomason, and my mother, Mable Thomason, and I are going to talk with you today from the topic, laying down religion, picking up relationship, or as they say dialectically, laying down my religion, picking up relationship. As Christians, most people are familiar with talking about love. My mother's going to now share from the easy Bible version from Corinthians 13.
1 Corinthians 13, 4-8. If I love people, I will be patient. I will be kind. I will not be jealous of other people. I will not be proud and say that I'm great. If I love people, I will be polite. I will not just want to praise myself. I will not quickly become angry. If someone does a wrong thing against me, I will not keep it in my thoughts. If I love people, I will not be happy when bad things happen. Instead, I will be happy when things happen that are right and true. If I love people, I will always accept their problems. I will always believe them. I will always hope for what is best. I will always be patient in troubles. Love will always continue.
In toxic religion, there are key things that often interfere and cause people to be harmed. Things such as calling out of sins. Mama, can you explain to the people what calling out of sins were?
It's when sometimes that the minister will call out from the pulpit and the authority board will call out young women that are pregnant out of wedlock. They're called before the church to make atonement and sometimes disfellowship.
I remember my pastor talking about his stepdaughter, who was one of my best friends, and how she would eat his food out the refrigerator, and she knew that that was his piece of sweet potato pie or that was his rib. And he would say things like, children are not honoring because that's not honoring her to touch my food. I felt embarrassed for her because she would be sitting right beside me while he talked about this, what I felt like was a minor thing of eating some food out of a refrigerator, and as if like she just did something horrific. A lot of times when I saw people called out with it, it was my friend or it was some woman they knew, she had several children out of wedlock. I felt embarrassed and I felt hurt for them because we were supposed to love. And I didn't think that looked like love, shunning people for what you feel like was wrong about them, instead of showing people that they could be themselves despite what may not have looked like somebody else's life.
I was never disfellowshipped either, but I have witnessed other young women in the community being disfellowshipped from the church because they were pregnant and not married. The girls who were disfellowshipped, they were brought before the authority board and the minister and members, yet the young man involved, or the man, period, was involved, was never brought. It was strictly a gender thing, and it was the female gender. And she was not allowed to participate in the young women gathering out in the yard, when we had sandwiches or something like a picnic. She was no longer allowed to be a young woman, even if she was only 15. She had to be with the matrons of the church after that. And they would talk about mothers with several children that were unwed, that allowed, they said, the children to run wild in the church that went up and down the aisles of the church. And this was talked about from the pulpit, not from the congregation, but from the pastor that was leading the church, or one of the deacons would take it upon himself to stand and embarrass and disgrace that woman because her children did not sit still in church. All these people stood in jeopardy of being called up, called out, and disfellowshipped from the congregation. And this went on for many years, from my youth until my mid-20s, late 20s, before they were able to understand that this was turning people from the church.
Right? Were there any additional things as far as sins that the leaders felt like would qualify someone to be disfellowship from the church in addition to being pregnant out of wedlock?
If there were any homosexuals known in the church, they were never welcomed. So they would be disfellowshipped from the church also. There were people that run illegal houses, I'll call it. They were disfellowshipped from the church also. They were not made welcome. They were not taught a better way. They were just turned away from the church and embarrassed from the pulpit.
And also insinuating that a person's relationship with God has to meet a certain criteria, such as following the church covenant, understanding and following the mission and the vision. And yet the pastors would harp upon this when many of the members did not even understand the intricate details of following that church's covenant, mission, or vision. These are the things that cause harm and has made a lot of people totally not want anything to do with religion.
I mean, I recall those things myself as a young girl and as a teenager, seeing these things happen. So you were just nervous about every little thing, even if you had to urgently go to the bathroom, you were almost afraid to get up to go to the bathroom. And I saw those things in my own experiences in the church. And they talked about members of the church that lived in what I referred to earlier as an illegal house. And they sold illegal whiskey and beer in the houses. Yet when those men or women came into church with large offerings, they gladly accepted those. They were welcome that Sunday, but thereafter they would talk about the conditions of their home without the members being there hearing them talk about it. I think they felt that it would change the people, but what it did was embarrass the people and humiliated them. And there was no at all, not one bit of showing love or compassion or trying to understand what brought about the lifestyle they were living. And most of the people that had that lifestyle were extremely poor. They were renters living in houses that you don't even see exist anymore. They were literally shacks that they were living in. So they were trying to compensate an income to raise their 6, 7, 8, some of the families even had 12 and 16 children. And there was no way they could survive financially living as a sharecropper. This was not just an ethnic group, it was a poor person thing, period. And they were merely trying to survive, to feed their families, to put shoes and clothing on their children. Because when school would start back in early fall, it was not unusual to see poorer people's children coming to school barefoot. So they were just simply trying to buy shoes and clothing and a sweater for their children and to put cornbread, biscuits, syrup, whatever they could on the table to feed these children. That's why they had the illegal houses, because they couldn't survive otherwise. They were referred to as moonshiners because they made illegal whiskey. And that was fairly common when I was growing up. And once again, it was not an ethnic thing, it was just a thing. Fortunately, my family was never sharecroppers. They owned their property. So we didn't have quite as hard a time as a lot of them, but we were far from having abundant money.
But I think we just got real rich heritage. I really do. I mean, Grandma Bell, my Grandma Bell, I did get to know her. She was my mom's grandma. So she was my great grandmother. She lived till I was 10. And my mom has shared a lot of the things, the sayings that Grandma Bell had, like the best family member, the person who thought they were the best because they had more money, is not better than the person you think is the worst family member. And she would say things to mama like, you can wash off mud, but you can't wash off blood because no matter what, you're still related.
You're still in the same.
You still are the same bloodline, and you treat each other with the courtesy and the love.
She said there are only two kinds of people: the ones that get caught and wrong, and the ones that don't get caught. Everybody does wrong. It was just, she was full of analogies, great analogies, and she lived to be 100 years old, and her dad lived to be 107 years old. So, yeah, that's just the heritage we have, and it was overflowing with love and acceptance. We learned to accept in that saying that she just said, you're no better than the worst family member you have because you all share the same blood. So you learn to accept the ones that don't do so well and the ones that do well. There's an average. You're just one of the family members, and that's how it was looked at by my grandmother. You could always see that what was happening in the church was not what should be happening. And my parents, and I've told them, and I did the same thing with them, we learned the power of prayer as being very young. And it wasn't in the church, it was at home. And we would, before we could read, we were told Bible stories. And my grandma was just like a living testimony of pure wisdom. She lived who she was. She didn't have to tell anybody that what I believe. You could see what she believed in the way she carried herself and the conversations she had. And she was very precise in the things that she said to you. She didn't just chatter, 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 chatter. She thought before she spoke to you. And I told them, think before you speak. Because I was told, think before you speak.
Oh, and Grandma Bell, that was her name. My great grandmother was Ida Bell Bonner Thomason type. Grandma Bell never had any formal education at all, but was wise
But she
and
could
articulate.
she could read anything a college graduate read. She was self-taught to read. And she was just wise, intelligent, kind, and loving. She didn't pick the people she loved. Even if she thought there was something wrong, she'd say, baby, I don't think that one's good for you to keep company with all the time. I'm not saying you be hateful. Just watch how you keep company with them. Mm-hmm. And that's how she said, keep company. Just watch how you keep company with them.
For a long time, I was the youngest kid on the road. And even though I had my sister's name Dion and my brother's name Justin, I didn't just have Dion and Justin. I had Dion, Justin, Tanisha, Michael, John, all the other kids who were older than me.
Veronica.
And the kids on the road over from me that went to church with me. So everybody had eyes on me and eyes around me. If my sister and brother, like I remember being in the lower grades at elementary school, and they would come off of the upper hallway to pick me up at the end of school day to walk me to the bus, right? Because the teachers didn't walk us.
Let me redirect that statement.
But it wasn't them, it was everybody.
The principal at the school told me,
everybody.
Ann is the most beloved child on the hallway. He said the entire Black community go to get her every evening out of kindergarten.
I can see it. And they would. It would be everybody. I mean, like Veronica, Regina, everybody, Bernita, everybody. And these people, we went to church together too. So It wasn't just a Monday through Friday thing. We would show up at choir rehearsal together, and if they decided on a Saturday, like if we had a Saturday morning rehearsal, all the mamas would cook in the back kitchen. They might decide to cook hamburgers and hot dogs and have chips and stuff. And then we would sit and eat and go play out in the front yard while they had choir rehearsal. But we also knew that we need to be safe playing, because if we walked in there to try to tattletale in the middle of a song, we were going to be in more trouble interrupting them learning a song than we would have been to just say, okay, I shouldn't have been mean to you. You shouldn't have been mean to me. We knew to not just try to tattletale and interrupt them from rehearsing. Because, like, as a kid growing up in church, it wasn't just choir rehearsal. Like, we always prayed before we started choir rehearsal, but our choir director would say, some of y'all ain't in the spirit. And because she didn't want us just singing the words, she wanted us to understand it in our hearts what we were going to sing. And she would say, "Well, you need to meditate on that. Y'all need to meditate on what this song." She said, "We're gonna pause. We're gonna pause, and somebody," and she might pick somebody like mom or one of my aunts or one of the other women in the choir and say, "Explain to them." Explain to the rest of them what this song means. So we knew we weren't just interrupting lyrics and pitch and tone and rhythm. We knew it was like interrupting the church service, because choir rehearsal was a form of worship. And you don't interrupt the form of worship unless you want to get chastised verbally or even, whooping. And so, yeah, and I mean, there are good things that have changed about religion, but those are the things I miss. Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. That's good enough for me. And in Black churches, often the songs were sung in a tempo like that, so that it was conveying the message that was hidden. In traditional Caucasian congregations, the song would be a little faster, like this: "Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. That's good enough for me." It's time for a spiritual cease and desist of harming people through the church. There should be no calling out of sins. Sin is a word that actually translates to mean mistake in Hebrew. Most of the people I know never go a day without being fallible about something. It's time for us to focus on relationships, but there is a way to have healthy relationships and not just having a relationship for the sake of saying that they're extending the growth of their congregation because we got to know someone. People yearn for connection. They yearn for genuine care. They don't want to be disfellowship. They don't want to be talked about what they're not following, whether it is a church vision, mission, doctrine, or even the 10 Commandments. They want to know they are cared about. When someone comes into church, Mother, how do you think they should be greeted?
They should be genuinely welcomed with a smile and a warm heart. They can feel that by the way your expressions on your face are. They can feel that by how you present yourself and saying, "Good morning. We're glad you're here."
Do you think that a person who is coming to a service for the first time wants to continually hear about the mission and the vision and the scope of the church? Or do you think they want the person greeting them to understand that they need to be shown interest?
I don't think anybody at the first step cares what the mission of that church is. They want to feel welcomed, that they're part of a new group that's willing to accept and love them and not set up boundaries by strict rules already and given a lecture when they first come into the house to worship. They want to feel like they're part of the group.
Back in old church, I remembered often when I was a child, our pastor would come over sometimes Sunday evening to share a meal. And I know here at the village church, often we go and have a meal after church is over. What is the importance of having that fellowship in a meal in building relationships?
So that everyone can relax and really get to know one another. Nobody is leading that conversation in any direction. You're free, speaking free will. You're talking to people that you want to know. You're not questioning them. You're not lecturing them. You're just chatting and getting to know them in genuine circumstances. And I believe even in the Bible, it tells us that we are to present ourselves freely, receiving, welcoming, rejoicing, and accepting them as for who they are, not trying to structure them into being who we think they ought to be in an early conversation.
Beautiful. And then if a person has not shown up for a week, a few weeks, a month, or if they cross your mind, what would be the appropriate thing to do to show them that you still want to develop a relationship that's healthy with them?
If at all possible, you should call them and say, "Hi, how are you doing? Is everything going well for you? Well, I just wanted to know if there was anything that I can do or someone in the congregation can do to help you. Or are you just ill or what's going on? We want to know what we need to do to make circumstances better for you."
Yes. Basically, the big thing about building relationships with people without causing any harm, without it being toxic or triggering, is to love people without an agenda. Church doesn't require that you be a specific way. Church, as I learned as a little child, is not even about the building. It's about the heart and the spirit of the individual.
Yes.
My mother's going to share a small poem with you at this time about what it means to have a relationship and not necessarily religion.
I don't go to church. That doesn't mean I lack a relationship with God. I don't read the Bible every day, every week, or even every year. That doesn't mean I don't know God's word. I don't get on my knees, fold my hands, bow my head every night. That doesn't mean I cease daily conversations with God. I'll question him in tough times. I've resented him in times of grief and loss. I've lost faith in him due to lack of faith in myself. But he never left me. He's been here the entire time. His footprint's just a step ahead of mine. I believe that he loves everyone. Read that again. Everyone. The obvious shivers, the silent shivers, the caring, the judgmental, the believers, the non-believers. I'm not here to preach. I'm not trying to prove myself. I don't believe in God because of how I was raised. Going to Sunday school every week, then sitting in a pew singing hymns and listening to a sermon. I believe in God because I've felt him. I've heard him all on my own accord.
So it is not difficult to build a relationship with other people in a healthy manner without making them feel like they have to be religious. Building relationships, as you've heard us share, is about letting people know you care, letting people know that you want to know what interests them, and you want to grow with them without trying to control them or dictate to them or shun them and shame them. I want to close with this poem before my mother and I sing. It's a snippet from one of my favorites by Max Ehrman. It's simply called Desderata. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be, and whatever your labors and aspirations. In the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul with its shame, drudgery, and broken dreams. It is still a beautiful, broken world, but be cheerful and strive to be happy. May his peace be with you till we meet again. May his peace be with you till we meet again. When we reach that distant shore, I will shed a tear no more. May he give you the strength to endure till we meet again. Till we meet again. Amen. And may the Lord bless you, and may the Lord keep you, and may the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious unto you, and grant you peace in your going and your coming, in your rising up and as you're lying down. And may the Lord show you how to build healthy relationships that nurture and demonstrate true love. God bless you. Amen.